Hello, Planeswalkers. Welcome back to the next episode of the Lotus Archives. As always, I am Kava.
What's happening, people? This is Jack.
And this week, we are trying something new where we're going to be alternating our episodes from our generic deck building stuff that we've been doing recently. And we're going to talk about some other stuff in the world of Magic the Gathering. This week, we are going to talk about some mechanics. But before we do that, we want to address some comments that we had at the end of our last episode regarding specifically Lab Maniac. So, Jack,
Yeah.
I'll let you take this one over. It was in response to one of your buddies in your play group that you play with, his comment. Let's address that
Yep.
right now and get that out of the way.
Yep. So my very good friend David, or as he is on YouTube, Crazy Eye Optics, he was our first commenter, and he wanted to respond to our shout out with the Lab Man. He basically just went in and explained, his takes on it and why he does. So I mentioned, he hates that win con, and he had explained in there why so. And he brought up a really good point with the solitaire playstyle that a win, including those cards can have, right? So, if you include cards like Laboratory Maniac, Thassa's Oracle, or that one Jace Planeswalker that does it, the deck can become very solitaire. It's just you cycling through your deck, you're going through your stuff, and, you don't really interact with your opponents too much, and then you just win the game on the spot, kind of out of nowhere. So,
Yeah, it's one of those things, and I'll recap on the comment that I added back to him. I personally am never going to be going to a random table and busting out stacks. As much as I
right.
love playing stacks, I'm not just going to bust it out whenever I want. Because 90% of the people out there hate playing against it. So why am I going to play a deck that everyone's going to hate anyway?
It can be very boring to just kind of sit there and have your opponent be like, well, you got to pay one extra for this, or you got to pay one extra for that. Or like the Labman deck just sitting there be like, okay, well, I'm going to counter all your spells. I'm going to mill through my deck and self-mill it, or I'm going to draw all these cards and then just win the game on the spot. So it was cool to get his insight on it and to get some feedback. We always love and appreciate any and all feedback that we get. So, keep the good times coming.
Yeah. So, for mechanics, how did you want to start this out, Jack?
Yeah, so we got some. Going to tackle some very unique mechanics. We got some really cool upcoming stuff from Aether Drift, or Ether Drift, I believe it's referred to now. I saw the Command Zone episode where they corrected us on the proper pronunciation of ether. So it's not Aether, it's ether.
Oh, it's Ether? I always
Ether, yep.
I always thought it was going to be Aether.
Nope, it's Ether Drift, and Gonti's Ether Heart and Etherworks Marvel. That's the correct pronunciation of it now that I was not aware of before, but we got that from them with the new Living Energy deck.
Huh.
So
Okay.
I've got pulled up here their new mechanics coming out, which we got some really cool stuff coming up in Aether Drift. Ether Drift, that's going to take me some getting used to.
Ether. Okay.
Yeah,
Ether. So
that's going to be weird.
So the A is silent then.
Pretty much, yeah. But I got some really cool stuff, and the first one that's kind of piqued my interest is the speed counters with the start your engines mechanic that we've got coming up here, which is very interesting. I do have one, they have a token for it now, one of the remember tokens that keeps you up to date on it.
Yeah, so kind of like how they have the Planeswalker tokens with the Planeswalker
Right.
ultimates that have, hey, this is a reminder, this is what happens. And I
Yep.
know there
And
were some other mechanics that did that as well.
Yeah, Enter the Dungeon
Yes.
was one that did a lot. It's like the Enter the Dungeon type things and stuff like that. So start your engines is pretty cool. It's whenever your opponent loses life during your turn, if your speed is 1 or greater, increase your speed by 1. Max speed is 4, and this ability triggers only once per turn.
Okay.
Now, from what I've seen, the cards that have the Start Your Engine ability on them when they enter, your thing goes up to 1. Right? So you, as soon as they come into play, if your speed isn't 1, you get 1 speed. So you'll always start at that one there. And then during your turn, if your opponent loses life, you go up by 1. But that's it. You only get the 1 for whatever amount of life they lost.
It's just 1
You
point.
go from 1, right? You go from 1 to 2, and then 3 to 4, and all that.
So essentially, if you put it out turn 1, then by turn 5, I think it's 5 is max speed.
4.
4. So by turn 4, then you're going to be at max speed as high as you can get.
Yep. And then all your cards from Ether Drift that have the max speed do this. Like, there's a few that, like, max speed, draw 2 cards, or max speed, get this bonus, or put a 1/1 counter on something. So it's pretty cool. It reminds me a lot of that old Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds anime where, like, they're got card games on motorcycles and they're running around and getting speed counters for their stuff while they're playing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I never really played
It's
Yu-Gi-Oh! That much or watched the
yeah,
anime.
it was an old thing that I watched when I was a kid, and it just like brought back that memory for me. I was like, oh shit, they used to get these things for that. So it's kind of cool. It's unique. I like it.
All right, so what are some other mechanics coming in Ether Drift?
Let's see. We've also got the exhaust mechanic, which is also kind of like an ability type deal. Which basically it's like a once per game type of thing. You pay an amount of mana, get an effect, but it says activate only once. However, we have confirmed that if you blink the creature, reanimate the creature, bounce it back to your hand, and replay it, you can get that ability again.
So did Wizards put out something, or is that just something that we were discussing and we did? Because I haven't seen Wizards full on put out an explanation yet, but I know you and I were.
Yeah, the articles I found regarding these mechanics did confirm that, and that is just kind of basically how.
Okay.
Well, that is just how like the mechanics and game states like that would work. Is if you because we've had abilities like that before where certain other cards would have a thing where it's like, okay, activate this only once per turn or once per game or whatever. But if you blink it, you can do that again.
Okay. Yeah, because like I know we talked about it the other day here, and we weren't 100% because Wizards hasn't really come out and said anything, and I haven't really been keeping up on it this past few days. Been busy with my day job, but
yeah, no worries. Same.
But
yeah, we do have day jobs. We don't do this full time.
As much as I think I'd like it, I think it'd bother me. I enjoy doing this for fun more. But
yeah, absolutely.
But so that's gonna add some unique stuff, especially as maybe I doubt they're gonna bring back these mechanics anytime soon if they do. I mean, I can't see them doing another Mad Max style wacky races set.
It would be cool to see. I'm just not sure how else they would do it with like the Mad Max Death Race style of stuff, but it would be cool to see them do something else with it in the future, maybe.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was reading yesterday, and it was actually kind of interesting to me, and I'm kind of curious because I'd love to see what their original design was, but it was an article by Mark Rosewater, and he came out and said that the mechanic mount or saddle from Wild West there, that was originally designed for Ether Drift. And they were going to have a completely different mechanic in that set. And it was going to be more similar to Mutate. And I'm kind of disappointed now after I read that, because the Mutate mechanic was pretty cool. But
they were going to put that in Outlaw Thunder Junction?
Yeah. So it wasn't going to be Mutate per se, but it was going to be a different take on how to mount creatures.
Okay.
And it had different mechanics set up and all that. He didn't go into detail too much about the actual mechanics, but they
Right.
decided that because they were such a similar mechanic, and the one that they were gonna go with for Outlaws was a lot more complicated. They decided to go with the
Yeah.
mount mechanic that they were gonna use for Ether Drift, and just make it the same thing and put it in Outlaws.
That makes sense. I mean, I can see that uh, going well and kind of meshing with the theme and what they were going for. The mount mechanic was it's interesting. It's a weird kind of take on not quite vehicles, but getting some extra added bonus from
Yeah.
the riding of a creature, which is really cool. We are getting that in Ether Drift, like we've seen. We have the there's that red and white new legendary guy coming out, Kaladin, I think his name is. He's got some really cool bits where like he gives your mounts and vehicles haste, and then when they come in, right, like when they enter the battlefield, they become crewed or mounted, basically, or saddled. So it's like they get their ability as soon as they hit the board, which is really cool.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like red and a white for it, which is really wild. Excuse me.
Yeah, I. That's actually really freaking cool. Oh, what was the name of that card?
I want to say Kaladin. Kaladin. He's red and a white. I think he's just red white. There was somebody else was talking about him a while ago when I was looking into this these mechanics.
Let's see. Visual spoilers. Yeah, because you got. I mean, you have Saddle coming back. I mean, you have
Yeah.
Gilded Gata, which is a common. Uh, and it reads whenever this creature attacks while saddled, create a treasure token. And it's just saddle one. I mean, that's pretty
Yep.
good for a 2-drop. But then you have the vehicles, obviously,
Excuse me.
which is going to be interesting with this set.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be really cool. They got a lot of cool vehicles in here.
Yeah, and the best way to describe it is Mad Max meets Wacky Races. Or not, Wacky Races is that older TV show, right?
I was thinking more Speed Racer, but
Speed
yeah.
Racer, Wacky Races. Yeah,
But
I'm
I like
thinking of the
the
old Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
yeah. I always liked the Death Race films were some of my favorites.
Okay.
I love those things. There was like it took place in a prison, and these guys had a race for basically their freedom and just kill each other in these wild cars with different mechanics and shit. Like they get weapons on them and everything. It was wild.
Yeah. But, alright, let's
So yeah,
see.
those are our upcoming mechanics. But we've had a few unique and kind of wonky mechanics in the past year, which we wanted to go over.
Yeah. So, I mean, we briefly talked about Saddle. It's essentially almost it's very similar to crewing a vehicle.
Yep.
And it, it's one of those things where it's so similar where it could have been the same thing, but I feel like it's because it's a creature, they didn't want to do that.
Right. They wanted to add something was like, okay, well, yeah, you can, crew up vehicles and cars and trucks and mechs and ships and all that. But what about mountain creatures, right? Like, what about riding horses or, maybe we'll see in Tarkir, we'll see some dragon riding, which would be pretty sweet,
I hope so. That would be freaking
right?
awesome.
That sounds like it'd be pretty cool to see some dragon riding coming out. So I think it's like a cool flavor, thematic thing where it's like, yeah, you can get some cool bits with that and see some different stuff coming out.
Yeah. So one of the other mechanics in Outlaws of Thunder
So,
Junction that came out that
mhm.
really changed up the format pretty much for the set at the very least was committing a crime.
Yeah, that kind of just reworked a whole bunch of stuff. That was like, it just made targeting simpler, I guess, or it just was like, hey, let's give a new meaning to killing stuff and targeting creatures, I guess,
Yeah,
and players.
they pretty much made any action that you take against someone other than yourself
Yep,
a quote unquote crime. And that
that
crime,
simplifies it.
yeah, that crime allowed you to do other cool shit based on different cards.
Yeah,
The exact description of it is a crime is whenever you cast a spell, activate an ability, or put a triggered ability on the stack that targets one or more of the following: an opponent, a spell or ability an opponent controls, a permanent an opponent controls, a card in an opponent's graveyard. So pretty much what I was saying with you target anything other than yourself, it's a crime.
yep. Like countering spells, killing creatures, dealing damage to the player or the creature. That's a crime, buddy.
Yeah, it made it fairly unique. Like one of the bigger ones that I remember was Gissa the Hellraiser,
Yep.
and she had on her card, whenever you commit a crime, create two taps, blue and black zombie creatures, or zombie rogue,
Yep.
and it triggers only once. So whenever
Which
you
is good because you don't realize how often that kind of stuff can come up in a game until you've got a creature or permanent on the board that cares about it.
yeah,
And then it's like, oh shit, this is a crime, this is a crime, this is a crime. They're like, there's just so many ways to commit crimes now that it's like you don't realize it until someone's got 13 2/2 zombies on the board by whatever turn it is, and there you go. Because you got instant speed ways of doing it. You can do it on your opponent's turns. You can do it on your turn. Because she doesn't care what turn it is for like that one in particular, right? It doesn't matter if it's your turn or somebody else's turn.
no, it could be
You know,
whenever it happens.
so you can just go around the board and make 4 zombies within one cycle, and then bash your opponents with them.
Yeah,
It's nutty. I've seen it in action. It's really nutty.
it's definitely a cool mechanic. I don't know if there's enough cards out there to make a very successful commander deck around that mechanic, but you could definitely do it as like a sub theme. I mean, wait,
Right.
yeah. I mean, you could probably do it, but how good is it really gonna be?
Well, just with Gissa as like the prime example here, right? Like she's definitely just one that you could just throw in there as like a zombie deck,
Yep.
right? And then you just have the committing crimes as like, I mean, it's mono black, right? Half their whole archetype is I'm gonna kill your stuff,
Yeah.
or I'm gonna target you with this, right? Like they've got so many abilities where it's like target player does this, target player loses life, destroy target creature, or whatever. So it doesn't even have to be something that like kills or blows up or destroys or whatever. It could just be, oh, I'm going to change the color of something. So target this is now this, or target thing is now this. It doesn't really matter what it does as long as it targets the thing. That's where it gets kooky and wild and really fun
Yeah.
to do. So I think at least like Gissa as a part of that, she's the only one that's really coming to my mind anyway. And it can be good. It can be pretty busted. Like I'm saying, you never realize how fun or wild it can be until it actually hits the field
Yeah.
and you see it in action.
But all right, so what's the next mechanic that you wanted to talk
So
about here?
the other ones that I've got a few here from way back in, well, not way back in the day, but like ones that have been more recent over the past couple of years. So this one kind of going in theme of like the similarity between crew and saddle, or crewing and mounting, whatever. We had back in Caverns of Ixalan, we got Discover,
Okay. Yep.
which kind of baffled me for the longest time. Like this is one that I had to adjust that like I couldn't quite wrap my head around what they were going for, because I would read a card with Discover like 3 times, and by the end of it, I'd just be like, it's just Cascade with extra steps, right? Like it's just Cascade. So I've got one pulled up here, which I'm sure we can show in one of our little corners here. That'll
Oh
pop
yes.
up. It is Hit the Mother Load. It's a really cool one. 4 and 3 red. It's got Discover 10. If the discovered card's mana value is less than 10, you create a number of tap treasure tokens, blah, blah, blah. So it's like a really cool, fun thing. But then this one was one of the only ones I could. It was like the first one that popped up that had the reminder text for me. So I'm like, okay, let me get the
Yeah.
stuff for. So to discover 10, you exile from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card with mana value 10 or less. Cast it without paying its mana cost, or put it into your hand. And the rest go on the bottom in a random order. So this differs from Cascade in the sense that a card with Cascade, you'll reveal cards from the top of your library until you hit something that has a less mana value than that card with Cascade. And that's basically it. You'll cast that card for free. The best example that comes to my mind that I use almost every time I play is my Sliver deck has the first Sliver.
Okay.
Which is it's Wooburg. It's one of each color. Simply says slivers you cast have Cascade. So you play the first sliver, it has Cascade. You go into something that's 4 or less mana, right? It's got to be less than 5, so anything that's 4 or below. You play into that, and then because of the first sliver giving all your slivers Cascade, if you happen to hit a sliver, you do it again, right? So Discover differs from that in that with Cascade, if you hit something that you can't put into your hand or that you can't cast, you just keep going, right? But with Discover, it's like you keep going until you exile the card with mana value 10 or less. And if it's instant sorcery, whatever, you could cast it or you could put it into your hand. Cascade doesn't have that. You either cast it or you don't with Cascade.
Yeah.
So like if you're cascading on somebody else's turn and you hit a sorcery that you can't cast, well, then you just don't get to cast that card. But Discover differs in that, well, you just put it in your hand. That's fine. You don't have to worry about it. And that Discover, it's Discover N, right? So it's not based on the card's mana value. Like with Hit the Marlowe, it has 10 on there instead of going off its mana value of 7. Which is, the other big difference there, which I kind of like. I think this is a cool twist and turn on it. I know they had like Explore in the previous Ixalan, and this is kind of a cool way to keep their theme going of discovering and exploring their island and finding new like treasure and stuff. So I think it's cool. I think it's a nice new take on Cascade.
Yeah, I mean, then you had in Bloomborough going on mechanics that are very similar. Bloomborough brought us Expend, which what was the other mechanic? I want to say it was from one of the Innistrad sets. Maybe not Innistrad. Shit. Overload.
Oh, that was from Ravnica.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Expend, based on my understanding, it was very similar to Overload. Overload, that type of thing. So, let's see. Expend card. So, boom. One of the ones for Expend, that is not an Expend. What the hell? Come on. There's got to be one. Expend rules text. Boom. I know there's got to be one. Okay, there it is. So you had the card Trail Tracker Scout. It was 1 in a green for a 1/3, and it had tap and add 1 mana of any color. So it was a Llanowar Elves Mana Dork style card, but it read on it, whenever you expend 8, return up to 1 target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So essentially, expend the reminder text has you expend 8 as you spend your 8th total mana to cast spells during a turn. Okay, so it was a
Oh.
little bit different than overload and all that. Pretty much caring about how much mana you casted each turn. So you
Hmm.
could have dropped four drops and you're at expend 4, or 4 1 drops and you're at expend 4.
Right.
That
So it cares
that's
about the total amount throughout the turn.
yeah, that's
Then
kind of interesting and it's different. It's a
I
lot
didn't know
different.
that. I didn't know that was there. I kind of bypassed Bloomburrow. That one didn't have a lot that piqued my interest, so I kind of
Yeah,
bypassed that one and kind of overlooked it a little bit.
yeah. Bloomborough was one of those sets where I liked the artwork. Didn't really
Yep.
get to play much in terms
Yeah, and I didn't
of
play it a lot.
uh, gameplay, but
Right.
Bloomborough also had. I might be thinking of this other one. Um, but Bloomborough had the card type Offspring, or mechanic
Yep.
Offspring, and that was more like Overload. Um,
Yeah,
in a
this one was kind of like it was like kicker basically.
yeah, Kicker. That was Kicker
Yep.
Overload. Essentially, like Tender Wild Guide is the first one that pops up. And it's
Yep.
1 and a green for a 2/2 Possum Druid, and it has Offspring 2. You may pay an additional 2 mana as you cast this spell. If you do, when this creature enters, create a 1/1 token copy of it.
It's pretty good.
That that you can build a deck around, especially with cards like Doubling Season
Yep.
and all those cards. Um, but Tender Guide, it's a solid card on its own, even without that, as it's a mana dork, and it also has an ability to put +1/+1 counters on other creatures, or on that creature. So that's pretty solid. Um, I actually didn't see this card when I was first doing my research, but that's actually a pretty cool card.
Yeah, I like the offspring mechanic. It was a fun kind of take on like it was like overload was a new thing on kicker because like the whole thing with kicker was like you pay the regular mana cost of a card and then you pay an extra bit on top of that to then get this added bonus. Like, oh, if you just played the card normally, you got this ability, but if you played the kicker cost, you got some extra cool big bonus.
Yep.
Overload was kind of it was a new hot take on that. I think when we went back to Ravnica, because I'm pretty sure we got that in Return to Ravnica with cards like Cyclonic Rift being the most infamous. I think
Yeah, and then you got it.
where instead of
You got it again in the commander decks.
yep,
Because I remember one of the first precons I actually bought was the Mystics of Magnus, and for some
oh
reason
yeah.
I never played it, but he had a lot of overload cards in there. I know Mystics Mastery was one of them.
That's a really good one. Yeah, lets you replay all the instants and sorceries out of your graveyard. I took that to a few legacy tournaments. Did pretty well.
Yeah, but those mechanics are all interesting, fun, especially if you have ways to get that much mana. Because those overload costs usually were pretty hefty.
Yeah, like I know Cyclonic Rift was like it was regularly 1 to blue, bounce a permanent. But then if you pay the overload cost, what you would end up doing is you would instead pay was like 7 mana, and instead of like overload would always do is it would replace the word of target, whatever with each.
Yep.
So you overloaded it to then hit every piece that you possibly could rather than just one thing, which was like their whole idea. Whether it was like, oh, well, let's say that you're, you know, bursting out with all this mana and all this power, and you're hitting everything possible rather than just the one thing that you could. So instead of just bouncing one thing with Cycrit, you'd bounce everything. And
Yeah.
there's a reason why that card is like $40.
Yeah, it's still probably the most iconic overload card.
It's one of the most iconic in Commander for sure because it's definitely one of those cards that if you put it in your deck, in your blue deck, it's gonna bump your power level up.
Yeah.
I would say it's one of those where it's like if you take it and add it to even like a Tall Rind, like we were talking about last time. If you take Cycrit to put in Tall Rind well, one, it's no longer a budget deck because,
No.
like I'm saying, that card's like $30 to $40, and it definitely takes it from like a simple, casual, fun kitchen table card or like deck up to something a little bit more, not not CEDH, but you're taking the first step to get there. Basically, is what that is.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Cycrift is one of those cards that it immediately bumps your power up, regardless of other cards in
Yeah.
your deck.
But Overload as a whole is just a really cool mechanic. We've had a lot of cool, fun, different like mechanics and card types pop up over the years.
I mean, one of the biggest ones, and it was more of a card type as opposed to a mechanic, but it brought mechanics in with that card type, was the
Yep.
rooms from Duskborn.
I like the rooms. The rooms are really cool.
Yeah, they're interesting. They kind of reminded me of just a different version of the dungeons from the Dungeons
Yeah.
and Dragons sets.
Like you'd have more control over like if you want to unlock this room at a certain point in time or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It was really cool. I've got another buddy in my play group who has a room deck, and it's actually pretty bonkers.
Yeah,
The rooms are powerful. They got some powerful effects, and being able to unlock them, I think, is like the cool new mechanic with them. Is you can unlock the rooms as you see fit, kind of.
yeah. I mean, unfortunately, there was only one. I want to say it was one commander that really cared about it. And it was what the hell was she? She was a 5-color there. Boom.
Marina Vendril.
Bingo. That was it. I couldn't remember her off the top of my head. But
She's not very popular.
No, and I was kind of hoping when I first saw rooms pop up, I was hoping we would get some commanders that would like focus on her or on them.
Yeah.
And all we got was one commander that
I mean, at least she's 5 colors, because at least then you can play every room.
yeah.
You know, I'd be kind of upset if like it wasn't, because with niche card types like this, because like we have the same thing with like shrines. We have this with a lot of different enchantments, right? Like the shrines with Ghost Shintai, sagas with Tom Bombadil.
Yep.
What's the other one? Crap, there was another one I had. My brain fart. Shit.
Was it Gates?
No, Gates was a land. This is another enchantment type. Saga's rooms. I know somebody who watches this is going to be screaming at me like, I know what it is, it's this. Saga's rooms, shrines.
Let's see.
The hell was the other one? I can't believe I had this all planned out too. I had it all in my head. Saga's rooms.
Let's see if I can
Unless
find
it is all of them and I'm misremembering that there's another one.
Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. Class. Were you thinking class?
Classes,
Because
no, but that's one of them. That's a good one. I
yeah,
don't think that's what I was thinking of though.
backgrounds are another from Dungeons and Dragons, but that's not really the
Background's a
same
good one.
thing.
No, this was one that was. Shit, what the hell?
Are you thinking quests?
No, not quite those.
I know quest is a much older mechanic. I mean, because we had Shrine, Shard, Saga, Room, Realm, Quest, Omen Path, Entropy, Class, Case, Background, Rune, Roll, Pin, Curse, Kartok, and Aura.
No, I think it was. It was just rooms and sagas, and that was it. Okay, now my brain just did a.
Oh,
Sorry, folks. My brain just
you're
crapped
not
itself,
thinking
I
of
guess.
you're not thinking of battles, are you?
Battles, no. Battles are a separate type entirely.
Yeah.
Battles aren't enchantments. Battles are a whole separate permanent type, which is actually kind of cool. But battles are totally different. No, I think it was just sagas, rooms, and Okay, now that's the other one. Sagas, Rooms, and Shrines were
Yeah.
the those are the most recent ones that I was thinking of because we had the Assassin's Creed Saga guys, and we had Tom Bombadil.
Yep.
Tom Bombadil is that, and I was thinking the five color big ones around those because I know we had this most recent one for Rooms, Tom for Sagas, and then Go Shintai for Shrines. So that's what I was thinking of. Apologies for the brain fart. That usually doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so those are all really cool, unique enchantment types that have their, mechanics centered around different things. Like sagas go on your upkeep, they tell different parts of their stories. Shrines get really cool effects during your like upkeeps and like post combat main phases, which is really cool. And then these rooms have their sort of like unlock lock ability, which I like with this new commander. Well, new-ish commander. She's not the newest one, but
Yeah.
it's unique that she can lock and then unlock the doors.
Yeah, and
Where
there's
it's like
only
you can get there. Yeah.
yeah, it's at sorcery speed too. You don't have to pay
Yep.
for the unlock cost, which is pretty good.
But like if you like some people be like, well, why would you want to relock the door? Well, because you can then get the unlock ability a second time.
Exactly.
Right? Because like a lot of them have this ability where it's like, oh, when you unlock this room, you get X effect. But then if like, oh, I want to, if you can tap and untap that commander over and over again, you can just, well, excuse me, lock and unlock that door. Because it's not once per turn, right?
No.
Yeah,
it's a tap ability. So as long as you can untap
Right.
her, you're good.
Right, so like if there's a room, I don't have all the rooms memorized, but if there's one that when you unlock it, make a creature, and you play Intruder Alarm, well, guess what? Now you can have infinite creatures.
Yes.
Because you just tap her, unlock that door, make a token, Intruder Alarm untaps her. Oh wait, no, that doesn't work. Because then you have to lock the door, which doesn't make anything, and then you need another way to untap her. No, never mind. That doesn't work.
I mean,
Thought I had something.
you have cards like Funeral Home / Awakening Hall,
Yep.
which that definitely could benefit. Funeral Room reads for 2 and a black. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life.
I love that one.
And then
I have like 3 of it.
yeah, and then when you unlock the door, it reads return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So that's definitely one that you would benefit from locking it and unlocking it constantly.
Yeah.
But
If you need to get that recursion out quickly after multiple board wipes, that's really good.
yeah, that's also one of those ones though that I feel like if I saw that on the board, I'm not gonna let you do that.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't want that to happen constantly either. But those are really good ones as well.
What was that red one that we were talking about when the set first came out? Charred Foyer. That one is one of those ones where you're not gonna wanna just keep unlocking and locking it because Charred Foyer 3 in a red. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile top card of your library. You may play it this turn. But then the unlocked card, Warped Space, is once each turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a spell you cast from exile. So for that one, you're definitely going to want to keep that door unlocked.
Oh yeah,
Not move it back and forth.
yeah. Now once that beast is out of the cage, you let him roam free.
Yeah. So what's the next mechanic that you wanted to talk about that was recent that kind of like caused you some second thoughts on, how does this frickin' work?
Did we have another one like that we talked about? Because right now I'm trying to.
I mean, I know in Murders at Karlov Manor, you had the case cards, which were very, very similar to the class cards from Dungeons and Dragons and the saga cards, in the sense that it had different steps to it. Um, like I know the one
Oh yeah, yeah.
case we've I feel like Wizards has been doing a lot of those style cards. Um, like the one that I remember off the top of my head is Case of the Pilfered Proof. For 1 and a white, the first ability reads: whenever a detective enters the battlefield under your control, and whenever a detective you control is turned face up, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then the next ability is
Right.
to solve. You have to control 3 or more detectives. And it reads: if unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step. And then for solved, if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a clue token are created instead. So essentially, for this
Right.
one in particular, once that's solved, you just get a clue token. Um, they
Yep.
definitely
With every one of those, yeah. Which
they
is good. So like that differs it from the sagas then.
yeah, because you're not having to. I know, like with the class, you had to like kind of level up, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you had to pay mana into it. Like barbarian class, you would put
Yeah,
things into it, or like wizard class, you would like pay a set amount of mana to, and that would like level it up, which was good.
yeah, and these they kind of differ in the sense that they advance to the next step as you're playing the game.
Right, you have to meet a certain criteria. It looks like to solve. You got to solve the case somehow. So by having a set amount of things on the board or meeting a criteria, you've done it. You've cracked the case,
Yeah,
so to speak.
exactly. So we talked a little bit about mechanics. Next episode that we do, we are going to be talking my personal favorite color. We're going to be going into mono green. And
Um,
I never mind, not mono green. We have not recorded mono black yet.
no, no, we're gonna go into one of my favorite colors of mono black. Try to jump the gun there, brother. We gotta go. We gotta go Wooburg, right? We still got black and red to go through.
Oh yeah, nope. I forgot. Oh, my mind's a little bit mush right now. But
Sorry, we haven't had all our coffee yet today, folks.
no, God no. So
Yes, no, mono black.
we start mono black next week. We'll drop
Yep.
that. This episode will be dropping hopefully by tomorrow night. But before we go, I want to talk a little bit about some of these more spoilers that we got for Ether Drift.
Yeah, there's
They
some pretty wild
they
ones.
are looking pretty freaking good. We had the commander decks pretty much completely spoiled at this point. Um, I haven't, to be honest with you, I haven't really looked at the Esper one. Surprisingly, being Esper is my main colorway, but in the Sahili deck, we are actually getting a new Nissa card, and I am super excited. And as I said that, my dog just perked up because her name is Nissa. But we're getting a card called Nissa World Soul Speaker. And she is 3 in a green for a 3/3 elf druid, of course. And she has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, you get 2 energy counters. And her secondary ability is you may pay 8 energy rather than pay the mana cost for permanent spells you cast.
Yeah,
That's pretty
she's pretty
cool.
good.
um,
She's very good. I'm actually looking to buy this energy deck that has Sahili Radiant Creator as its commander, which it looks really cool. I love energy. I love its mechanic. I love the idea of getting these uh like counters onto the player to build up towards this like explosive finisher, which it looks like this deck is finally doing with energy.
yeah,
We've had some really lackluster energy stuff recently.
I mean,
Like it's been lacking
the
in that
I,
department.
I will say the one thing that I noticed with both of these decks is they're running fairly heavy on lands compared to like what I
They
personally
are,
run.
yeah.
Like I know the Esper deck is running 39 lands.
That's a lot.
um,
The Living Energy has 38.
yeah, like I know for the Eternal Might, the Esper deck, they're
Hmm.
bringing back cycling, so I understand why there's so
Yep.
many lands in that because a lot of lands cards have the cycling ability on them. But
Yeah. The Energy deck has a really like top heavy. Its curve is very top heavy, so it's got a lot
yeah,
of like 5, 6, 7 drops, which is obnoxious a little bit. So um, I know I was watching the Command Zone episodes for the Living Energy anyway with Josh and Jimmy, and when I was watching that, I totally agreed with what Jimmy was going with his uh, cuts and add and additions into the deck. Which I'll likely. I have a few other pieces. There's one they didn't mention actually. They didn't mention Gonti's Etherheart,
really,
which
I
I thought
figured
was a
that'd
little
be
weird. Yeah,
that was the first card
like I
I
know
thought
they
about putting in.
right. Like I know they usually try to keep within a budget, but that card's not that expensive. So I'm wondering why they didn't go with that one. Like he went a very cool route. Like his budget for it, like he ended up only paying like $5 for
Oh damn.
the cards he wanted to add, which was sweet. Because like the energy cards are very cheap, so you can upgrade the energy deck without breaking any bank whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, because
So
with
I'm just not sure about
God's
the because
that,
like you don't get to take your infinite turns with the Aether Harp or with the Aether Harp, but you can do some really cool stuff with Sahili, right? Because she's got the ability like okay, you cast an artifact or artificer, make an energy, and then beginning of your combat on your turn, you can pay 3 energy, create a token that's a copy of a permanent you control. Except it's a 5/5 artifact creature in addition to its other types, and it has haste. And then you sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Well, I know from playing the Mishra deck when the Brothers War was happening,
yes,
I would do a really dumb combo with Gonti's Etherheart where, you make a Mishra, it's a worker, different token, and you could just get a shit ton of energy and make infinite turns, basically. Though I'm
yeah,
not sure if that works in this one because with Mishra, he changed the name of the token. So it wasn't the same legendary card, right? It was a different name. So the legend rule didn't apply. Saheeli doesn't do that. So I'm thinking it might not work in the way I'm thinking just because that state based action of like, okay, you have two legendary permanents of the same name, one's got to go,
yeah. That would make sense,
right?
but
So like, I don't think you can make an infinite loop with that. Because like, I'm pretty sure there's not a moment in that instance where you can pay the energy into the Ether Heart token to sacrifice it to take an extra turn. I'll have to look into that. I'll just see if there's like an opening or like a window there where you can use that ability. Because of state-based action, I don't think you can.
yeah, I don't think so, but I'm not 100% positive. But this set looks fairly cool. Um, we did have Innistrad Remastered released uh, this week, last week, something like that. I know people are starting to post their polls. Um,
Which is awesome.
a
I love
lot,
that.
yeah. A lot of people are getting their Edgar Markovs finally,
Ugh, gross.
which it was nice when he was so expensive because not everybody could afford him.
I mean, he's still pretty expensive. He's still like a top pick right now.
Is he? I don't didn't even
I think
check.
so, yeah.
What the
I think he's
hell?
definitely like one of the he's like the golden pick basically. He's still like the one that if you pulled it, you got your money's worth.
Let's see. I know for a fact with his special card he is.
Yeah.
But let's see. Edgar Markov. Let's see what he's going for right now. Let's see. Price high to low. So in Innistrad Remastered, he's still going for about $41.
Yep, that seems about right.
And that's his base card.
Yep.
That's not
That's
his
like the non-foil basic
special
one,
edition.
Right.
His boom. Let's see, because I guarantee if I pull up the Innistrad Remastered, there's a showcase one that's going for $40. That one's actually kind of cool because it's bringing back the Innistrad Vampire freaking Noble border.
Yeah, that one's cool. I like that one.
And then, of course, they gave him a retro frame treatment, too. The only one I'm not seeing is his showcase. I'm not seeing a price on that. Probably because they don't have any.
Yeah, they may just not have it yet.
Edgar Markov showcase. Let's see. I'm kind of curious to see what it's going for right now.
Right.
Okay.
Oh boy. What is
So the showcase one that I'm thinking of, I didn't realize they're all serialized.
Oh yeah.
And it's like a poster border. And TCG Player right now has 3 listed.
All right.
They have number 316, 318, and 493. They're all going for $3,500.
Okay then. Rip that. No thanks. I'm good.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah. No. I'm good. I don't even want to play him to begin with, so I'm good.
Like, I mean,
I'll keep my werewolf deck though. I like my werewolf deck.
Like, I mean, I have my Edgar deck still built mainly because it was my best friend's favorite deck before he passed away. I still have it built.
Yeah.
I don't really play it.
That's fine. I would put that in like a glass case or something. I would put that as like a display piece.
Exactly. Like, I have an Edgar framed, put on my wall. Because I have my Edgar deck that I bought when the set first came out, and then I also have his. I put one of the ones framed and put it right on the wall. But $35, that is a lot of fucking money for a card.
$3,500.
Yeah. $3,500.
Yeah.
35.
I'll drop $35 for it, no problem. But you put those extra zeros at the end of that? No.
Yeah, for 35, I would have dropped it for that card. The artwork is cool as hell.
Oh yeah.
But with that, we are gonna sign off for today. We will be back next week, and we will be talking about Mono Black. As always, I am Kava.
This has been Jack.
Have a great night, everyone.
Take care.